Welcome to Tall Talk Times podcast, a podcast made by beautifully tall people.
For beautifully tall people.
I'm Letty Saunders.
And I'm Tom Garner. And I think that intro, from my perspective, it sounded a little bit almost like for beautifully tall people.
I'm going to do a load of outtakes one day. I'm just going to put a whole podcast out there of, no, there's no way. I'm just going to delete them all.
as in outtakes where Tom messes up consistently.
Yeah, we both have. We probably shouldn't tell our beautifully tall listeners that they're getting a polished version of our audio.
Polished? Oh yes, we're very polished, obviously. Yeah. This is a very, very professional outfit.
Tom, how have you been?
Oh, I've been all right. I'm afraid I was a bit rude to a little old lady the other day.
Oh, Tom, no. Was this about your height?
Yes, it was. Yes. Shall I tell this embarrassing story and do penance for it afterwards?
Yeah, go on.
So I was waiting at a bus stop near where I live in Leamington Spa, and a little old lady came by, and there was a queue for the bus, and she pushed in, and without realizing it, and then when she saw me, she said, "Oh, really sorry, can I go on first?" I went, "Yeah, no problem," and she seemed quite nice, and then as she went onto the bus, she turned around, looked at me, scowled, and said, "You're tall."
Yeah.
Her demeanour completely changed. It was quite a visceral reaction, and in response, without thinking, I went, "Yeah, well, you're short." And dear me, I wish I'd said nothing, because her face completely changed, and she went, "You can't say that."
Oh.
And I said, "Well," and I went, "Well, you said that to me. Not that I'm short, but that I'm really tall." And it could have escalated, but luckily she went onto the bus and yes.
Luckily
so
she needed to sit down, hence the reason why she pushed into the queue in the first place. Oh.
Yes, but I did think, I mean, I should say, listeners, I'm not in the habit of doing this, but I thought it was interesting from a perspective of, she thought it was okay to comment on my appearance, but when I did exactly the same back, she didn't like it. And I think that's quite common for a lot of tall people. They encounter that when people point out their height. If they give it back, the reactions aren't very positive, shall we say.
Yeah, I have a friend, whenever they would say, "How tall are you?" or "How tall is your friend?" she would just turn around and say, "How much do you weigh?" I'm just like, oh, point made. Oh, I'm only asking how tall she is. We're only asking you how much you weigh. But it's one of these things where, again, society think it's okay to point out our height because we don't know how tall we are. Obviously, we need people.
We?
No.
We should be grateful.
Yeah. For them to remind us that we're so beautifully tall is fabulous. So we can shoulders back, chin up.
Exactly. Well, I take it all back. I'm glad she pointed out how tall I was. Yeah, so I've just given you a brief glimpse into what my life is like, just antagonising old ladies. So there we go.
When you're not antagonising old ladies, you are researching a lot of history. You are a historian, aren't you, Tom?
Indeed, yes. So I think with that wonderful segue, we should proceed to Giants of History.
Absolutely. Here it comes. Tom Garner's Giants of History.
Yes, so thank you, Letty. Welcome to Giants of History. So my our giant this week is a true medieval giant of English history. So we're going to be talking about King Edward IV of England. So this is quite a big hitter in historical terms. And despite the fact that he lived hundreds of years ago, there's an awful lot to say about his life and height. So, Edward is born in Rouen, France, in 1442.
Oh, I love Rouen.
And he was the eldest. Is it nice?
Yeah, beautiful. And the cathedral.
Yeah. Does it? I haven't been myself. Does it feel like a medieval city in the centre?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously we've got new stuff, and there are bigger, more medieval towns and places like Troyes, or spelt Troyes.
Yeah.
But no, I do I do like it, and I'll be quiet now and let you carry on.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, clearly, listeners, head over to Normandy. You'll have a good time.
Yeah.
So, yes, Edward is born in Rouen in 1442. He's the eldest son of Richard, the third Duke of York, and Cecily Neville. Now, he's initially known as the Earl of March, and Edward was not born to be king, but he became a central figure in the Wars of the Roses that took place in England during the mid to late 15th century. Now, these wars were complicated dynastic conflicts between the Lancastrian and Yorkist houses of the ruling Plantagenet dynasty. So, effectively, what you've got to imagine is the Plantagenets. They are the predecessors of the Tudors, but they're split into cadet branches of the Yorkists and the Lancastrians.
Yeah.
And Edward was a Yorkist. So initially, Edward's father, the Duke of York, fought against the Lancastrian King Henry VI, but his father was killed at the Battle of Wakefield in 1460. Now, Richard, Duke of York, believed that he had a better claim to the throne than Henry, and when he died, Edward took up the Yorkist cause despite being just aged 18 at the time. So imagine if you're a sixth former. Yeah. Wow. So most of us just go to sixth form and think about, oh, what do I do? Should I just go to university? But no, he takes up an entire political cause in a civil war. So that's quite something. So despite his youth, Edward was a skilled soldier, and he defeated the Lancastrians at the Battle of Mortimer's Cross in February 1461. He was then crowned as king before proceeding to win the Battle of Towton shortly afterwards. This Towton was fought during a blizzard, and it remains the bloodiest recorded battle fought in England. It's reckoned that up to 28,000 soldiers were killed at Towton.
How many?
Which is 28,000, they reckon.
Wow.
So to put that into some sort of context, that is 8,000 more than were killed on the first day of the Somme, which is the British Army's most bloodiest day in military history. And you've got to also bear in mind that the population of England would have been much smaller than First World War Britain. So it's a pretty significant, horrible event. There's people have dug up skeletons with horrendous battlefield wounds. It's really grim.
Oof.
Basically. So after Towton, Edward secures his rule, and Henry VI has to go into hiding, which he does for several years before being captured and put in the Tower of London. Now, despite winning the crown, Edward alienated his nobles, particularly the powerful Earl of Warwick. He's known to history as Warwick the Kingmaker. Now, he upset Warwick by marrying a commoner called Elizabeth Woodville in 1464. After several years of growing discontent, Warwick rebelled against Edward and forced him to flee to the Low Countries in 1470. Warwick then restored Henry VI to the throne briefly, but Edward, in a pretty boss move, returned to England and defeated Warwick at the Battle of Barnet in 1471.
In quotes, a pretty boss move.
A pretty boss move, yes. That's what many important historians have said.
Excellent.
So, but Edward does not stop there. After Barnet, he then moves to defeat Henry's queen. She's called Margaret of Anjou. And Margaret leads force, well, she doesn't lead forces, but she directs forces at the Battle of Tewkesbury in May 1471. And at this battle, the Yorkists under Edward's command kill Henry VI's heir, who's also called Edward, confusingly.
Wow.
And he captures Margaret. Now, after all of this, Henry VI is murdered in the Tower of London, and Edward IV is able to rule securely for a second time. He then dies in 1483, aged only 40.
Wow.
And he was, well, according to historians, two things: gluttony and excessive womanizing.
I don't know. I don't think I want to know anymore.
No, so he was, he was a bit of a lad, shall we say. So when he dies, he's succeeded by his young heir, who becomes Edward V. He's only 12 years old, but he in turn is deposed by Edward's youngest brother, who's Richard, Duke of Gloucester, and of course the Duke of Gloucester becomes King Richard III. So Edward IV is Richard III's elder brother. So he had a very tumultuous life, did Edward IV. He was undefeated on the battlefield. And he was also, for our purposes, the epitome of the medieval warrior king. And this is because he had the exceptional height of 6'4". Now, this is in metric, that's 193 centimeters. And bear in mind, in the medieval period, most people would not have been 6'4". So his height makes him, to this day, the tallest of all English and indeed British monarchs. So that includes Scotland.
Ah, that's a really good tall fact.
Yeah. So today we're talking about Britain's tallest king, effectively. And not only was he very tall, he was also known to be a very handsome man. So for our purposes, he's beautifully tall.
I still need that time machine. Handsome tall man. Bit of a problem with the womanizing and the gluttony, but apart from that, dateable.
Yeah, you heard it here, listeners. So in terms of how we know about his height, there are two main reasons: archaeology and contemporary chronicles. So we'll talk about the archaeology first. So Edward is buried in St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle, and his coffin was opened in 1789. So what they discovered was his skeleton, and they measured his skeleton to be 6 feet 4 inches in length, and he was also noted to be broad in proportion. So he would have had broad shoulders. So this is a hefty guy.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder that he was good on the battlefield. So that's the archaeology that confirms his height, and then we have contemporary descriptions. And for the medieval period, there's a surprising amount that I've managed to find. So I'll go through it. So the first person that wrote about him was a Flemish writer called Philip de Comines, and he described Edward as a very good-looking and tall prince, while the Croyland Chronicle referred to him as a person of most elegant appearance and remarkable beyond all others for the attractions of his person. Now, that seems a little bit obsequious, but it has a grain of truth in it. Now, because he was tall and handsome, one of his popular nicknames was the Rose of Rouen, which is a reference to his birthplace in France. And there's an interesting link with Rouen as well, connected to his height. Because the Yorkists were supplanted by the Tudors 2 years after his death, they had to make themselves legitimate in the eyes of the English public. And one of them was to say that Edward was illegitimate. And Richard III did this too, to secure his own claim. So Richard and the Tudors claimed that Edward was not the son of the Duke of York, who was short, but it could have been that his mother had an affair with an archer who was very tall. And so people are quite dismissive of Edward's legitimacy, and they use his height as an excuse, thinking, well, he can't possibly be legitimate because his dad was short. So therefore, I don't know, some archer is his dad, maybe. So that's a bit bonkers. But, I think that Edward was a Plantagenet because his ancestor, Edward I, for example, he was very tall. So there is a precedent in the family.
Yeah.
So it's known that as well as being tall and handsome, Edward could be charming, hence why he was popular with the ladies. But he was absolutely the fearsome medieval king when he needed to be. And this was described by Dominic Mancini, an Italian monk who visited England towards the end of Edward's reign. So Dominic Mancini met Edward and wrote that the king had a gentle nature and cheerful aspect. Nevertheless, should he assume an angry countenance, he could appear very terrible to beholders. So this gives, I think, a hint that Edward was at once a gentle giant, but he could also use his height to intimidate others. Yeah. I'm getting that because he doesn't mention it directly, but I'm thinking if you've got height and you're broad-shouldered, you're going to use it to get your way.
Yeah, he's going to have
particularly if you're a king.
Yeah, one presence, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. But Edward's height was very famous, not just being called the Rose of Rouen, but he's even referenced in Robin Hood poems. Now, when we think of Robin Hood, usually what we think of is his king is Richard the Lionheart in those stories, or King John. So Richard the Lionheart is the heroic king, and King John is the baddie. But these are actually later stories, primarily from the Tudor period. But early Robin Hood poems from the 15th century have references to a King Edward rather than Richard the Lionheart or King John.
Right.
So in these poems, historians think that Edward IV is the most likely contender. And there are little references that called to our comely king, who is, in their words, great above his coal. Now, to us, that phrase, great above his coal, is kind of gibberish. We don't really know what it means.
I don't. No, not a
but
clue.
It's actually a medieval reference to height. Its modern translation refers to a monk's cowl, which the king supposedly towers over as he wanders around England in disguise. So what you've got to imagine is, say there's a group of monks in a monastery and the King of England goes by. Well, the monks will look up from beneath their hoods and they'll see a king above them. And they reckon that this King Edward is Edward IV.
Right.
So that's interesting that his height was so famous in England, it kind of seeped into folk tales.
Yeah. No, that's charming. I like that. That's a really fun Giants of History fact. I like that one.
Yeah. So I was because I studied medieval history at university, and I was pleasantly surprised that there's so much information about Edward's height in contemporary chronicles, because usually medieval sources are quite scanty for information. You have to kind of really look hard. But in this case, Edward's height was clearly a wow factor, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. But surprisingly, he's kind of forgotten by most people in the public today. I mean, you would have heard of Richard III and Henry VIII, who was Edward IV's grandson, I should say. But the king, but Edward himself, he's kind of been a little bit lost to history. But in my opinion, he shouldn't be. He's very important.
Yes, I believe he is. But that's great, Tom.
Yeah. So Letty, build yourself a time machine and go and meet King Edward. I'm sure you would get on famously.
Well, he's handsome. He's the right height, but a little bit concerned about his womanising. So I think I'll spend my time machine tickets elsewhere. Thank you, Tom. That was a good, fun, provoking Giants of History.
Yeah, so there you go. God save the king.
I enjoyed that Giants of History. Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome. It's good to go back to the medieval period. It's very dramatic.
Yeah, I could prefer our health now than then. And the horrible injuries that you mentioned on the battlefield.
Yeah, it's interesting. The medieval period is an interesting one. It's very dramatic, but you just would not want to live there. It was a horrendous time to live. No matter what, there's lots of revisionist histories going, it wasn't so bad, but we're better off now by a long shot.
Sure.
So I believe you've been interviewing a lady called Liza Daniels.
Yeah, our co-founder Nat Daniels' sister, Liza, lovely lady, and I really hope you enjoy this brilliant interview.
I'm sure I will. Fantastic. Let's go.
Hello at Tall Talk Times Chat with Letty Saunders, interviewing another lovely tall person, beautifully tall, co-founder Nat Daniels' sister, Liza Daniels. Hi, Liza.
Hi, Letty. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. We're having a little giggle off air, listeners, because Liza is one of our small talls at 5'10".
Yeah, I've never been called small at 5'10", but there's a first for everything, isn't there? It's all relative, I guess, isn't it?
Absolutely, completely relative. And at 5'10" for a woman and 6'2" for a man, our minimum height for Tall Talk Times.
Yes, I just scraped in as a tall person.
That's one of our beautifully tall, smaller people. But no, you're welcome, Liza. It's lovely to have you with us.
So, yeah, lovely to be with you.
Thanks. We met earlier and we were talking about shoes.
We were, which, for most people, you would just think shoes, especially for women, let's go shoe shopping. That's so exciting. And Sex in the City springs to mind, and a walk-in wardrobe with rows and rows of shoes. But I think being a tall woman with big feet, and by that sort of size 9 is what I would that's what I mean by big. It's not a given that you can just go into any women's shoe shop and just pick a pair that you like and ask for it in your size, and they bring it to you. It's just not how it works. It's the opposite. You have to go in. Well, I do. I find that what works is to not sort of waste my time going and looking at the selection, what there is. I just go in and I say, look, I'm a size 9. I'm looking for boots. I'm looking for court shoes or sandals. And whatever you have in a size 9, please bring them out to me. And, that actually does work. It does work. It's just sort of doing things a bit differently.
It is. It's a question of changing our shopping behaviour to the average everyday person would, as you say, I've got a new outfit, need a pair of violet coloured shoes. I'll pop into the shop and buy some.
Yeah, it's the idea. It's a simple idea, but I think just in practice, I've just sort of had to adapt what I do, to sort of still get what I want. But it's still not, it's not common that I can sort of go into any shoe shop and just to get what I want. But I learned that sort of early on. I was always tall. I wasn't one of those people who shot up. I was always sort of tallest girl in my class, tallest one among my friends.
Yeah.
So and even getting school shoes at age 11, I remember being sort of taken into London, by my mum and dad to get me shoes. Well, not because it's just that there was nothing locally, and we knew that there was only certain places that we could go to get me shoes that would fit. And so that was quite an expensive thing, and I had to have them. So yeah, from early on, I just realised that actually this was going to be a problem.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you think your feet are big at size 9, because that's adorable, frankly.
Well, I've never, that makes me feel like I've got dainty little feet, and I've never felt that before either.
Oh, well, keep talking to me. I'll make you feel really dainty.
Well, what size do you take?
Oh, no. There's just
can't go there.
No, not giving out that advice. I mean, I'd rather tell you my age than my shoe size.
Really?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Because we are both ladies, women, who are over 40. That's about as much as anyone's going to get. So we can remember it really should have changed from the time when you were going to school, from the time that I was at school. It should change. We should be able to go into a shoe shop and at least be able to look at a catalogue and order them in.
Yeah, absolutely, at the very least. And I think because, people are sort of getting bigger, aren't they? And I just feel that I'm still not being fully catered for. It's just, it's always a problem when I try to get shoes.
And I think they've been messing with the shoe sizes as well. What was a 45 was a size 11, a 43 was so they've changed all the different sizes on certain Long Tall Sally and ASOS and things.
Yeah, that makes it more confusing. Or people bring out 42s to me and they say that's a 9, but it's not. I think it's closer to an 8. All those things. But nothing sort of surprises me anymore.
Do you know of the save search option on eBay? And so pre-loved, I love pre-loved stuff.
Oh, no, I haven't heard of that.
So if you do a search on eBay, you can save that search. So if anything comes up, you get an email.
Oh, right. Okay.
So be it a particular Ralph Lauren size 14, save search. So whenever one of those comes on eBay, I get an alert comes through.
Yeah.
Because I like they do a long fit sometimes on sleeve length that I really like.
Yeah.
So apart from it being good for the planet and saving money, you will get a hit every time some shoes come up in your size, for instance, if you were to
Yeah.
do that safe search.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. That is good to know because, especially, as you say, if you've had shoes by a certain make, and you know that they fit, you like them, then you're on pretty safe ground to say, yeah, send me an alert, and I'll, if they look good, I'll buy them, and there's every chance that they'll be okay.
And then you've got Vinted, of course, and you've got some other
Oh, yeah.
pre-loved as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't take away from the fact, Lisa, that we shouldn't have to do that to get a choice of footwear.
No, that is true. That's true. You'd have thought by now the manufacturers would have sort of woken up to the fact that they actually do need to make, more shoes for, size 9 feet or even bigger because, we're here, we exist.
Same thing goes with trousers, though. I mean, recently we've had a lot of the tall community, tall women especially, have had their range in the shop reduced to only being online.
Oh, yeah. Now that's really not good, is it? Because, the online shopping, yes, I appreciate it's convenient, but also, you can't try things on. Then so you get them online, you get them home, you try them on, they don't fit, and you've got all the faff of having to send them back. So
I want to do that Sex and the City thing with you, though. I want to be able to, go, let's go out, do lunch, get some girlfriends together, do lunch, then let's go and do some shoe shopping and some clothes shopping that fits, and then have a Cosmo, and we're done.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of my ideal afternoon, really. Food, drink, shopping, what's not to love? I'm there.
Tall girls getting into trouble, and hopefully not with our own credit card.
No, exactly.
So there are some positives with being tall, apart from the footwear and the. I mean, I've got a 36-inch inside leg, so I'm not able to go into a store easily and pick up a pair of trousers.
No, unless you ask for giraffe size, maybe.
Oh no, we don't do animal memes. No. The days of me being called a giraffe and a daddy long legs are hopefully well and truly in the past.
Yeah, let's hope so. No, we were talking earlier about sort of being tall. I've always, I know I've sort of been banging on about my big feet, but I've always loved being tall. I would never have it any other way. Just because you stand out in a crowd, you're you're sort of obvious and distinctive, and I actually like that, the sort of the show off in me. Yeah, that speaks to the show off in me. And I I know, like, even my mom has said, when she was growing up, because she's tall as well, same as me, but she, in photos, she would sort of bend her knees to try and look not so tall and stoop and have round shoulders. I've never done any of that, I've never felt the need. I've always been sort of pleased and proud to be tall.
And your folks, I've met your father, the lovely Phil Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
They've encouraged you, and they've had a lot of positivity about being tall, though, haven't they?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they, because, they're both tall, so that's where I get it from. So they know exactly what it's like. And they've always, I think they've always encouraged me, well, to be myself in whatever context, to be who I am and not to wish to be anyone else in any other way. And I don't just mean about being tall. So, they've always been very affirming of who I am and what I am, for sure.
But that's a lovely background to come from, and absolutely be yourself wherever you are and however you are. But there are lots of tall people that haven't necessarily had that positive affirmation that we have.
Yeah. Well, that's sad.
So we need to remind them that they're not alone, and that they can come along to our Tall Talk Time Celebrating Height monthly social in London.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got another one coming up in Bath and a weekend in Belfast.
Wow.
And lots of National Trust trips, coffee and cake.
Well, cake, I'm there.
And coffee, I'm definitely there.
Me too.
There's lots of different things going on. So when you stand with other tall people, you don't necessarily feel odd Not that you do. You embrace your height.
No, I think that like it's quite rare for me to even look other women in the eye. Most women are shorter than me, but the only time that I've ever felt sort of small against other women is I used to work for L'Oreal, and so we used to have models coming in all the time for photo shoots.
Lovely.
And that's the only time, when all these sort of 6 foot plus women came in, and then I was standing next to them. That's the only time I've ever felt short, and that was quite strange. I mean, that was many years ago, but I've remembered it because it was such a strange feeling.
Yeah, well, I'm going to make you feel like that again at the next Tool Talk Times gathering. We'll get Nat to bring you along, and I'll stand next to you in my heels.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'll look up at you, and that'll be an absolute first for me.
Oh, that's great. I'm looking forward to that. But one of the things that we mentioned earlier, apart from obviously standing out, being unique, being remembered is always nice.
Yes. Yeah, I just, being tall, it does make you distinctive. People can't miss you, put it that way.
And there's some career advantages we were talking about, weren't we?
Yes, I believe I've read, can't remember when or where, but if you're tall, then your chances of sort of moving up, say on the corporate ladder, being promoted and getting to management level and CEO level, the chances of that happening are greater for tall people. I don't know if it meant particularly for tall men, but and that's, I guess I remembered that as well, because that sort of spoke to me. If you're tall, then perhaps big general statement coming up, but you're more likely to succeed, or at least get promoted, and so that's sort of quite weird in a way, I guess.
Well, I'll take any advantage, frankly.
But yeah, absolutely.
I'll take any advantage there. But yeah, I do believe that there's a correlation between height and being promoted. And don't know if that's, as you say, just a masculine thing or whether females as well.
I think, when I read it, I think it was talking about men more than women. But, there are statistics to actually prove this. It's a thing.
Apparently there's a lot less risk of cancer and many other diseases.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
No, I am going down a rabbit hole here, Lisa.
Yeah.
Apparently, yes, there is a link between being tall and getting more promotion. But whether or not that's because taller men are apparently more confident and memorable.
Yes, yeah, I guess so.
And they earn more money, apparently, because of their tall talent.
Wow. How about that?
But enough about tall men. Let's talk more about tall women. Again, off-air listeners, Lisa and I were having a conversation about many years ago, and the lovely Billy Joel, who had a very tall model girlfriend.
Yes, Christy Brinkley, I think it was. Yeah.
And there was Jerry Hall, Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
So I can't actually see an awful lot of that in the current celebrity. Not that I'm hugely up on current celebrity status, but for younger women, would you have any advice for younger tall women nowadays?
Well, I just think, be who you are, just embrace it.
Yeah.
But not just being tall, embrace everything. And I think, these days it's easy to get sucked in by social media and to be told that we have to be a certain way, we have to look a certain way, you have to weigh a certain amount, dress a certain way. You should do this and you shouldn't do that. And, I think for women in particular, whether it's tall women or not, sort of going a bit off topic, but, in the same magazine, you'll get recipes, but then a few pages along, you'll get diet advice and then you'll get makeup advice and then turn a few pages and then, oh, just look natural. So I think, especially for women, there's a lot of conflicting information out there.
Yeah.
So I just think, be confident enough to go with your gut, do what you feel. But going back to sort of tall women with shorter men, I also think, again, just, it's probably about, the man or the person, if if it's not a man.
Or the woman.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what the person is like. But I think, with celebrities, it possibly could be to do with money, who knew?
Yeah, right.
But, I'm just trying to think of other celebrity couples. There's Rod Stewart and Penny Lancaster.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think, there's genuine love there. But, is she about 6 foot and he's not, but I just think, or maybe that sort of started as a money thing and turned to love. Who knows about
Oh,
things.
that's their business. It's just lovely to see
Yeah.
people in love generally. I don't care if it's, tall men, taller women, with men, with women, whatever. Everyone just be yourself. That was a really good message that you made there.
Well,
a good point, because I'm currently fighting well, you should have Botox, but I don't want Botox.
No, well, I understand why people have it, but then, I think it sort of feeds into that, the social media thing again about how we should look. It seems to be that there's like a phobia about getting old with a lot of people.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So do I. And I think, I think it was Sarah Millican who said that she loves her wrinkles. She embraces her wrinkles. Not that she's got any, but that's what she says. Because, so many people have not had the chance to sort of get old and develop wrinkles, So getting old is a privilege and a pleasure. I mean, and that should be embraced. And I don't think, personally, I embrace my wrinkles and my lines, and
I don't think anyone can see mine because I'm 6'3.5". So
there we go,
up there. So that's what that and a hat. I'll be fine when I start cutting fringes in. But no, I mean, already we stick out because we're taller. Be that unique, be that memorable, however you want to react to it, however you feel about it. There's not a lot that we can do to hide. So why should we?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But I'm going to have a look for some tall women with some shorter men in the public eye, put them up on our Facebook group, Tall Talk Times Facebook group, see what kind of reaction we get. So definitely one for us to consider. But yes, your feet are adorable at size 9, Liza.
Well, thank you. They've never been called that before, but I'll take it.
So Liza, obviously, I've met your lovely brother, the co-founder, Nat Daniels.
Yeah.
He's very tall.
Yeah. 6'5", 6'6", I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
May I ask where you got your height from?
Well, my family tree can be traced back to William the Conqueror. And so down that line was Edward Longshanks. I think Edward I, called Longshanks because of his height. Yeah. And so we can be traced back to him. So who knows?
So you're a direct descendant of Longshanks?
Yes. Yeah. And we've got documentation. We've had a genealogist go into our family tree, and she went right back to William the Conqueror, and we've sort of got it, we've got documentation about it that shows, the links all the way back from 1066 to the present day, stopping off at Edward Longshanks. So, who knows? It could be from him that we get our height from.
I think it most certainly is. I mean, because this has just gone down the generation.
Well, let's just believe that. I would like to think so.
Well, I don't know many people that can actually say that they're direct descendants of Longshanks. actually, Lisa?
Well, I don't know. I think you'd be surprised. I think lots of people can actually trace themselves back to kings and queens, with for example, there was that, I think Richard III, wasn't it? They found him in a car park, and isn't Danny Dyer also?
Yeah.
He could be traced back to William the Conqueror as well. I think that's him. So it means that I'm related to Danny Dyer as well.
I don't know how
My
tall
claim
Danny
to
Dyer is.
fame. No, I know. I don't think he really is. But
But
yes, my claim to fame. I'm royalty. I'm related to royalty and to celebrities. So
well,
there you go.
I think your claim to fame is well made. But yeah, because we've also had a lovely meeting with your father, Phil Daniels, who told us about his time during the war when he was baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you have quite a height affirming family, don't you?
Yes, we do. Yeah, my dad, he's the youngest of four brothers, and he's the tallest of all of them, actually. So maybe my grandmother, she was sort of having them bigger and bigger as she went along. So,
Nutrition. Yeah,
yeah,
a lot to do
yeah.
with nutrition as height as well as your genes is crikey. I just cook constantly for my two.
Wow. Well, because they're teenagers, aren't they?
18
So,
and 20, six
well, there
foot
you go.
5.5 and 6 foot
Yeah,
3.5, still growing. And yeah, honestly, when they
hungry,
fledge come
hungry.
autumn,
Yeah.
I don't quite know what to do with myself.
Think of all the money you'll save as well, all that
Yeah.
food you won't have to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you had
Mhm.
the opportunity to send a message out to the shoe suppliers of our beautifully fabulous feet that are
Mhm.
out with of the shorter people's foot size, what advice, what
Mhm.
would we be asking? We'd like to have a cross section of shoes in our size in stores.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think being able to have the choice and to know that we could walk into most shoe shops and pick out the shoes that we liked, and that there'd be a very good chance that they would be available in the shop in our size,
Yeah.
without thinking, well, there's no point in me even looking at the selection because they won't have them.
I'd love a shop that just did all tall stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are shops like that, but not enough, not enough.
I mean, there are people going over to the States to buy clothes and shoes.
So, but if they can do that kind of thing in the States, then surely somehow it should be available here.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I don't mind if it's London, Birmingham, wherever, but we could have like a Tall Talk Time shop filled with
Yeah,
everything.
exactly. So, it's an expensive shopping trip to have to go to the States.
Yeah, I'd rather not, frankly.
Isn't it? No.
Yeah. Pop into London before our
Yeah.
Tall Talk Time celebrating height monthly social meet, and
Yeah.
let's have lunch first. Go and do some shopping where we can actually try. There are a couple of shoe shops in London up near Baker Street. There are some over there. But
There
do you not
used
find
to
they're
be one.
expensive?
Well, yes, yeah. And why should we pay a premium?
Mm-hmm.
We should just have shoes available at reasonable prices, just in just most sort of shoe outlets.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be an exclusive thing.
No, because
It shouldn't be.
more and more people are tall. Size 9 is lovely, and then I mean there are ladies with very large feet as well, and I can understand that a lot of lines can't be stocked, but surely
Mhm.
say size 9 through to size 12 could be.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But that tax, that tall tax, we have way too much of. It is getting a little bit as though we're being discriminated against because of our height that we can do nothing about. Us paying a premium, as you say, for shoes
Right.
rather
Yeah.
than.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the premium that we pay for having extra long sleeves, it far outweighs the extra little bit of material that they need, or extra large shoes, which are just normal size for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. What's the big deal these days? Anything's possible. They're going to send the public to the moon soon. on shuttle flights. So
Maybe they could send me to a shop to get some clothes that fit. That would be nice.
yeah.
The particular shoe brand of a certain lovely Carrie in Sex and the City. Come on, you know what it is, Lisa.
It's Manolos, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
They do go up to large sizes.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
You see, I would never even have thought that. And I would never have even looked into it because I'd have just thought, no, it just won't happen. It just won't.
But you've bought a pair of shoes recently. You were telling me about off air.
Yes, yeah, on a website that actually was recommended by Tall Talk Times called, I think, Otto and Ivy.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought, yes, I'll give them a try because they are specifically designed for women with larger sized feet. So I just thought, well, it's got to be worth a look. So I got some boots from there, which are, they're sort of trendy and fashionable. So it doesn't mean that you have to sort of forfeit being fashionable to just get bigger shoes or boots. So, these boots came online, they came to my house and they're perfect.
You love them.
Yeah, I do love them.
But you're right, for a long time, because we've had larger feet, we've had to have boring, unfashionable footwear. Yeah,
absolutely. I think, things have probably got marginally better, but, going back to when I had to get school shoes, some of the shoes that I had to get, they were just
shameful,
ugly and horrible.
Yeah. And they don't make you feel your best, and you're already coping with your height as a teenager and everything else changing.
Yeah, exactly. But, I remember a particular pair of shoes, they were so ugly, but I had to have them because, there just wasn't the choice.
Yeah, my mum used to drive me up to Northamptonshire to go to the factory shops up there.
Oh, really? Where Kinky Boots, the factory for that is there.
And they were just court shoes, and they would be the same style, but in different colours, and you would attach different shoe decorations to them to make them look different.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so you can adapt like that, I suppose, but
we've come on a long way to from where it used to be, say 40 odd years ago. It has come a long way, but it should be better.
Yeah, it should. After all this time, it should. That things have improved, but only slightly, not enough.
Yeah. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Tall chat. Lots of people will reach out for this one because I do get many queries about footwear. And I don't know if you heard the first episode of season 2 with Blanca, talking about how empowering it is to wear heels.
Yes. Yeah, well, it can be, but...
Can we convince you to wear heels?
Well, I do occasionally, but it's more about comfort these days.
Okay. Well, maybe one day you'll be comfortable wearing some heels because you'll still be tiny standing next to me and your brother.
Well, yeah.
And other tall people out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't rule it out. But, these days it's just, I think of wearing heels and then my feet hurt just by thinking about it. How old does that make me sound?
No, my summer wardrobe is a top, shorts and Converse, and I will wear that religiously from April through to October.
Yeah.
Because it's comfort.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, with heels on, sometimes there's just nothing quite like it, it just adds that bit of elegance and glamour. Sometimes you just need heels sometimes.
You just need heels sometimes. Thank you, Liza Daniels. Tall Talk Times, Tall Chat. Thanks for joining us. And let's hope we've inspired some younger tall women to embrace their height and realise that, okay, the choice out there isn't perfect, but it has come on a long way.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
What do you think, Tom? Is she lovely?
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I really like listening to her perspective on what it's like to be a tall woman, particularly as a tall man. Yeah, you don't often. It's hard to put yourself in the other shoes, so to speak. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was fantastic.
And everyone has obviously their own personal stories and their own relationship with being beautifully tall. So it's nice to hear from Lisa.
Yeah,
Very grateful for her joining us.
thank you, Lisa. Now, Letty, speaking of tall women, I believe I need to wish you a safe journey to Belfast.
Yeah. Going to meet some Glamazons from Ireland, a group of beautifully tall women over there who are joining Tall Talk Times for a few days, actually. There's a group of us going out to Belfast and we are going to do the Game of Thrones studio tour.
How are you? Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic.
And we've got 3 really, really lovely restaurants, and there's the Titanic experience and a couple of other bits going on. But basically just tall people hanging out, but in Belfast. So Tall Talk Times in Ireland. So looking
Did
forward
you
to
tell
it.
me, did you? No, I'm sure you'll have a wonderful time. Did you tell me that we've got tall people from across the world attending this event in Belfast?
Yeah, we've got some people coming from the States.
Fantastic. Well, look, we're clearly having an international spread. I like this. This is good.
You're not mistaken, because Giants of History goes out around the world, as we've mentioned before in previous podcasts. But to have an event away from England is fabulous. It's nice. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sorry that I can't be there, but do say hello to the Glamazons for me, and I hope you have a fantastic time.
Yeah, will do. Thanks, Tom. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this week's episode of Tall Talk Times podcast, a podcast made by beautifully tall people.
For beautifully tall people, thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.